Hi, I am Darci Werner, and I recently did a piece for the Magpie magazine. It's an online Iowa magazine, and this is in her February Love edition, and it's called Never Say Never. It was that smell again. Just down the lane and across the road from our home was a family that raised hogs. It's an odor that you have to acclimate yourself to. A smell that lingers, but you shrug off because you enjoy the care and value in the animals themselves. Plus, if it just so happens to be the means of funding your family farm, then that smell is a good one. But to a family that just has a few pets and no interest or working knowledge of animal husbandry, a manure odor is just a stench. Now don't get me wrong, they were very nice people. But I taught myself saying more than once that I will never marry a hog farmer. A few years later, I was attending a college in southern Illinois where my love for animals connected me to friends that crossed over into the agricultural realm. One such friend wanted me to attend a meeting geared to ag majors. She wanted me to see this really cute guy that she would love to go out with. We sat there among her classmates waiting for the president to show up to officiate the meeting. They were of ag-related majors, and I was the art major that was out of place. It was as if I took an improper turn and ended up in the wrong classroom. Then the moment of truth arrived. He walked in. Remember, this was a class of animal science majors and not fashion design. There was that smell again, the one pulled to the forefront of my memory from home. This young man worked for a local swine producer and had just come from doing chores, the elements still lingering on his clothes and boots. Bib overalls were his fashion statement, and topped off with some sort of ball cap sporting a hog feed supplier logo. It didn't matter to me. Anyone who does not believe in love at first sight has never seen the rendition of City Art Major meets Smelly Swine Man. It was not a blockbuster at the theater, but a segment of my life. I cannot testify that harps were playing or butterflies floating in the air and time standing still as he walked into the room and took his place at the head of the meeting room. I can verify that it felt like all the air was siphoned out of my lungs and my heart started racing. Cool. Be cool. Don't be a dork. I had to then remind myself that this was the guy that I was to check out for my friend sitting next to me. She had eyes for him, and I was here to give her my opinion and not to fall head over heels in love with this guy. She leaned in to ask me what I thought. He's okay, I replied, while inside I was thinking that was the best-looking ham hauler I had ever seen. My hangout places involved the agricultural building, and I would catch him sauntering through the halls from time to time. To my advantage, the romance my friend desired never took place. We did eventually end up dating, and I had to eat my words. We've been married now for 34 years, and 11 of those years were raising hogs. He did eventually change his attire from bibs to regular work pants. I still do not see butterflies or harps playing in the background, but he still takes my breath away as a man who has provided for me, cares, and protects. Yes, you do get used to the smell. He used to have a hat that read "Smellin' Sweet, Raisin' Hogs." I hate to think what would happen if I had followed my own advice and turned away this wonderful man because I refused to marry a hog farmer. I would not change the smellin' and raisin part of my life for anything in the world. It's also my constant reminder to never say never.
And show your drawing first. That one.
This was one of the drawings that I did for our wedding. It was our wedding party, and the Magpie has used it as the main page for the article. If you get a chance to check it out. And I also did a piece recently for Chicken Soup for the Soul. If you want something else to read, the Miracles and Divine Interventions, a copy is available at James Kennedy Public Library. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Linda Degree, and I'm going to be reading a love poem from my past, from my very first love. The poem is called "The Changes Time Brings." I wanted to be sure of myself before I fell in love. I wanted to be ready to give love, to accept love, as well as need the love of a very special man who believed me to be a very special woman. I welcomed your being as my dream, but I rejected your romance. I wasn't ready to be in love with more than life. There was too much yet for me to experience. I needed my freedom. I needed no commitment to you or from you. I wasn't ready for love yet, and neither were you. It's different now. I want your love. I need your love. I can accept your love. There were times, so many times, I wished you'd go away, stay away. I recognized you as a man of vitality, sensitivity, and intelligence. Yet I couldn't love you as you wanted me. I wasn't ready to love a man. I welcomed your friendship wholeheartedly, but I rejected your romance. It's different now. I want your love. I need your love. I can accept your love. I'm thankful you never went away to stay away. I'm honored and awed you recognized me as a woman of versatility, serenity, sincerity, and energy. I'm sure I love you now. Do you still love me? I'm willing, and I want to make a commitment to you. Yes, it's different now. I'm ready for love. I want your love. I need your love. Please accept my love. And so, my love, now that you know of my love, please respond to my love. My love, love me. This is from the book called The Importance of Dandelions. You can find it on Amazon.com. I have 2 other books that I published. The first one is called The Sense of It, where 2 siblings during the Vietnam War are trying to find their ways to being peacemakers, yet have very different ways of going about it. Some Sense of It takes the main character, Margie, and she decides she can no longer find the sense of it, but she can find some sense of it. So this is her search for starting a career, still trying to be a peacemaker, and searching for love. You can also find this on Amazon.com.
Hi, I'm Karen Schloss, and this is my poem, How Did We Come to Be Married, published February 2005 in Julien's journal. How did we come to be married? It was a hot, muggy summer night, that much I remember. We drove inexplicably deep into Wisconsin, full of good Italian food. We pulled off onto a side road, way off onto the shoulder, turned off the car. The night was filled with noises, night birds, crickets, cicadas. You lay your head in my lap, looked up at me. Will you marry me? I said. Yes, you replied. Will you marry me? Yes. We sat in silence for a while, looked at the stars. Constellations hung like artwork in the navy tapestry of the sky. Eventually, self-conscious at being parked in some farmer's field driveway, we turned the car back on and headed home. 2 weeks later, preparations complete, rings purchased, dress, flowers, ceremony painstakingly crafted and edited. We drive to the church, attend the service, then linger to get married. Not so many guests, just a few friends and family. It goes without a hitch. I can't stop smiling. Never felt so much joy in my entire life. You look mostly worried. Mom and best friend have made a spread to entertain guests at the reception. Unexpectedly, we have gifts to open. Afterward, we clean the hall, take our new family, and go home with it. Portraits taken at Walmart. Why not? Everyone is clean and dressed up. We visit the library, pick up books on tape, then go home. First a family meeting, then the first dinner I make for you as your wife. Casserole of squash, chicken, peaches, rosemary. Kids early to bed. Then we turn and greet each other as one.
I'm here to share a story that I had published in 2018 in the Chicken Soup for the Soul book, The Miracle of Love. My story is called Random Certainty, and it's about how I knew my husband and I were destined to be together. It begins with a quote from Emery Allen. Do you think the universe fights for souls to be together? Some things are too strange and strong to be coincidences. Random certainty. I met him the evening before the second semester of my junior year in college. I had seen him the night before at tryouts for the drama department's spring production. When the director introduced him as a 60-hour major with professional experience, I remember whispering to a friend, Sigmund Bonebrake? That's got to be a stage name. Nobody could have a name like that. And even though his acting was excellent, he looked so young, like a 14-year-old. It didn't seem plausible that he could have much experience. He was definitely an enigma. I met him the next evening in the den at the student union. When the students he was sitting with left, a friend of mine brought him to my table. Don introduced us and promptly left as well. I began chatting with him tentatively, a bit shy of having to entertain someone I didn't know. I began by asking him how he liked the school so far and what he thought of the tryouts. When I found myself more at ease, I asked him to tell me more about himself. He told me he spent 4 years in the Army, attended 3 colleges for a brief time, worked in Kansas City as a cab driver and a printer, and lived in Australia for 2 years, where he was part of a trapeze act in a carnival and was in a couple of movies. Looking across the table at him, I found his story difficult to believe. After all, he barely looked old enough to drive. I was skeptical. But when I questioned the veracity of it all, telling him he couldn't have done all that since he was too young, he grinned and pulled out his driver's license. I was shocked into silence when I saw he was not 14 at all, but nearly 30. In order to break the awkward silence, I suggested we go bowling at the lanes adjacent to the den. Later, he walked me home. As classes began, I found that Sig was in 4 of mine, and he managed to find a seat next to me in each one. I actually began to believe he was as old as he claimed because he had impeccable manners. He carried my books, opened doors for me, and pulled out my chair at tables. All behaviors boys my age never learned or practiced. We became almost inseparable. We had breakfast together in the college cafeteria, took our classes together, and met in the den for supper before rehearsals, where we worked lights and sound together. During quiet times, we learned about each other, our likes and dislikes, our adventures and misadventures, and our hopes and dreams for the future. Then, one day, I discovered 2 bits of information about him that I felt were signs that our relationship was meant to happen. The first sign was that one of the productions Sig had been involved in during his 15 years in theater had won a competition that had been broadcast nationwide. Remarkably, I remembered seeing that broadcast and even specifically remembered the portrayal of a character in that production. I remembered explaining to my sister that they must have used a trampoline to accomplish the spectacular jumps his character had made. The second sign we were meant to meet revealed itself when we were sharing our love for writing poetry. I told him I'd been published in a book in Iowa Poetry 3 years earlier, and I was eager to show him my poem. He told me that he had also been published in subsequent issues of that same publication. While he returned to his dorm to get his copies of the books, I retrieved my copy to show him. I read his poems first and was amazed at their beauty and complexity. When he wanted to read mine, I found I was almost embarrassed to show him my simple poem. But I let him read it, and he was most complimentary. Then he said, "I think I'm published in this issue as well." "No," I replied, "I read this issue cover to cover when I got it, and I'm sure you aren't. There aren't any poems by a Sue Bonebrake in this book. I would certainly have remembered that name. He flipped through the book slowly, looked at me, and then smiled. Yes, he said. Since I was in Kansas City at that time, my aunt in Iowa published one of my poems under her name. Then he showed me his poem. As I read it, my heart stopped. Of all the poems in that entire edition, his poem had been my favorite. 2 weeks later, when he asked me to marry him, I thought again of those signs, and I said yes. Thanks to random certainty, we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary soon. That was 3 years ago, and this August we will celebrate our 53rd anniversary. Do I believe in random certainty? I most certainly do. And that story also started me writing and submitting, and I was published again in a Chicken Soup for the Soul book in 2019. So I hope you all have a happy Valentine's Day.